I figured I'd do a different kind of video this year for Christmas. I'm going to tell a story that I found interesting, and I'm going to also talk about an incident that happened to me. Mine's not really a Christmas story, but it did happen around Christmas time. So I thought it'd be an interesting thing to talk about. I figured I'd start out with a UFO Christmas story. Because of the nature of this channel, I often talk about UFO encounters that are pretty sinister, but they have been known to actually help people, such as the case of two men in 1955, in this case that I will discuss. In the 1950s, there was a significant jump in interest in science fiction movies and books. It seemed like every week there was another Earth versus the Flying Saucer type movie being released. So it's no surprise that some young people back then were taking a keen interest in the topic. Ken, who lived in Milwaukee, and his cousin Russ, who lived in La Crosse, both 14 at the time, were heavily interested in the flying saucer mystery and would spend countless hours outside on their own watching the night skies. Afterwards, they would converse on the phone, sharing their reports with each other. More often than not, nothing happened, except the occasional falling star. They also scoured newspapers for anything UFO related and would read every book on the topic. Ken remembers that he and Russ fancied themselves amateur investigators. Anyway, as was the tradition, their entire family would gather at a lodge in northern Wisconsin, which had been built by their great-grandfather. It was a way for the families to reconnect, if only for a couple of weeks. The area of the lodge was surrounded by acres of thick forest, and so Ken recalls that he and Russ were extremely excited about that year's gathering, as they were planning to do some skywatching while there. Wisconsin had seen its fair share of UFO reports in 1955, so that also very much intrigued them. Upon arriving, Russ and Ken had sneaked off to a room away from the rowdy grandparents, aunts, and uncles and cousins to discuss that evening's plans. It gets dark early in northern Wisconsin in December. Since we only had about an hour of daylight, Russ and I decided to go out and get the lay of the land. So when we went out after dinner, we'd already have our post picked where we could scan the night sky. Ken remembered that there had been a recent snowfall, so neither really feared getting lost in those unfamiliar woods, as they could just follow their tracks back to the cabin. As evening came, they got dressed, grabbed their flashlights, and set out into the woods, following a small trail into the forest. Being city boys, they quickly realized that the forest was filled with critters that also make tracks, so they needed to be vigilant. About 4:45, the forest immediately got dark, followed by a strong wind. It was strong enough that Russ actually became concerned and suggested that they head back. Ken agreed. It was only when they began trudging back that they realized that their tracks were not as visible as they thought they would be. Along with the wind came snow. They had not gone that far into the woods, they thought, but for some reason, in the darkness, with only a flashlight, they found themselves becoming concerned as their tracks were quickly filling in, or becoming obscured by drifts brought on by the suddenly strong winds. It also seemed to be getting colder and colder with each step. Ken and Russ carried on down the trail, heading, they hoped, in the direction of the lodge. Ken admits that what happened next was extraordinary. Ken was the first to see it, pointed up at it. Russ had also noticed it, and the two boys stared up in complete amazement. A brightly glowing ball of light, perhaps a yard or so in circumference, was bobbing up and down near the top branches of a tall tree. Russ told Ken that he thought that UFOs were supposed to be bigger, to which Ken suggested that apparently they come in all sizes. As if it had suddenly noticed them, the glowing orb suddenly lowered and zipped directly at them, just skimming the tops of their heads. This terrified the two boys, who began to run down the trail. The object, for whatever reason, zipped out in front of them and slowed down. It hovered just over the trail, bobbing up and down a few feet ahead of them. Russ got the sense that the object wanted them to follow it, but feared that something, possibly beings, might emerge from it and take them. Ken reasoned that if there were beings inside of it, given how small it was, then they'd probably be only a few inches tall, and most likely they'd be able to handle them. Russ then wondered if it might expand and get bigger. Ken brushed it off. They decided to follow it, noting that it was giving off enough light that the area around them was lit up bright and they could see the trail and what was left of their tracks quite well. The glowing orb stayed just far enough ahead of them, following the trail, safely leading them out of the woods. By this time, Ken noted they really didn't think it was a flying saucer anymore. They had no idea what it was. Within 10 to 15 minutes, the great-grandfather's lodge became visible through the haze of forest and falling snow. Upon seeing the lodge, Ken recalled that the object suddenly shot skyward, moving high up into the sky until it resembled a star. But it wasn't finished with its display of power and majesty, Ken recalled. It was like it was showing off for us. It came zooming back down, faster than we could imagine anything flying, and seemed to crash into the lodge. Ken and Russ screamed in horror. It seemed to them that the mysterious object had led them back to the lodge, only to destroy it. Clearly, from where they stood, the gray hall of the lodge was filled with flames. As they raced through the ankle-deep snow for the lodge, they realized that the light was not from a fire, but from the lodge's lights, and lights from the suddenly decorated Christmas tree situated near the lodge's front window. As they entered, the family members scolded them for missing the tree decorating. It was then that they were informed from another family member that they were lucky that they got back when they did, as a big snowstorm had been issued for the region and was quickly moving into the area. Russ and I just looked at each other in complete, almost reverent silence. Whatever that glowing object was, it had saved our lives by leading us back to the lodge before the big snowstorm hit. Curiously, in the years that followed, Ken and Russ's interest in the phenomenon only increased. Okay, I figured I'd leave off with a story that happened to me. Going back quite a few years, I was, back when I was in high school, me and my friend Mark, who I've talked about in another video, when his parents would leave or something, I'd sneak over and we'd like drink his dad's alcohol, or we'd somehow get alcohol and we would drink and stuff. And we'd watch movies. So anyways, around this time, it was like, I think we were like in grade, I don't know, 10 or something. His parents had left for Italy, and so we had the place to ourselves for a couple weeks or something, and me and Mark had gotten some alcohol or something, and we decided that we were gonna, watch a bunch of movies and get drunk. And I think we'd watched the Star Wars movies at the time. We had alcohol, but we weren't hammered on this night. Okay, so I'll set it up. It was a winter night. It was in December. It was freezing cold out. It was snowing out. When I got to his house, it was pretty cold out. It was snowing out. His house was like a 2-level house, and so the garage, when you pull in the driveway, there was a garage in front, and right beside the garage on the ground floor was a doorway. When you walked in that door, the ground floor was basically their living room. So, and the upstairs, the second floor, had bedrooms and stuff, and there was like a kitchen area, but nobody really did anything up there. It was basically the ground floor, where they lived, where they watched TV and ate supper and stuff. So, anyways, and there was a balcony and everything on the second floor that overlooked the garage. And when you walked in the front door, down, beside the garage, when you walked in the door, the living room was right there. There was a couch right, a few feet from the door. And there was a hallway there was like a turning hallway, so there was a hallway, you turn a corner, there was a hallway, you turn another corner, there was a hallway up some stairs, and you're on the second floor, and there was a door there. But anyways, so what happened was we were drinking, watching movies, and it was pretty late. I think it was, like 1 or something. And we weren't like drinkers. We didn't drink that often. So we were feeling really good. We weren't stupid drunk. Like, we didn't have enough alcohol to get stupid drunk. So we were just feeling good. We'd watched the movies and stuff, and it was like 1, 2 in the morning, and we decided that it was time we're going to crash. So I slept downstairs on the couch. Mark decided he was going to sleep upstairs, in his room. He went upstairs to go to bed. And I stayed downstairs, I had the TV on, and I was laying on the couch, crashed out. So here's where it gets kind of weird. So I'm sleeping, and it's like 3:30, close to 4 in the morning. And I wake up, and it's freezing cold, like absolutely freezing cold. And I'm like, that's weird. And I look over and I notice that the door, the door that comes right off. Okay, so when you walk in when you come up the driveway comes right off the street. So anyways, so I look over and the door's open. And I'm like, crap. What the heck's going on here? Why is the friggin' door open? It's friggin' snow was blowing in the house, right? Because it was snowing out. So I got up and I thought, didn't Mark shut that door? Like, kind of thing. And I thought, how's it open? So I got up, I walked over to the door, and I looked out of the door, and there was, tracks leading from the road up the driveway into the door, up to the door. And the door's wide open, and snow's blowing in, and I'm like, there's no tracks leading away. Like, the person walked off the street, walked up the drive, and it was snowing out. So, these were fairly fresh. So it just kind of hit me then. I'm like, wait a second. There's tracks coming off the road, coming up the driveway, into the house. The door's open. Somebody's in this house. Somebody just came in off the street, walked in the house, probably walked right on by me while I was sleeping on the couch, which is really creepy. So I'm like standing there, like freaked out. I shut the door, and then it just sort of like hit me. I'm standing in this doorway, like there's somebody in this house right now. Somebody just came in this house. So I kind of freaked out. I was like, I turned on every light, and I slowly made my way around, like up the, around the hall, down the hall, and around the corner, and around, and I kept thinking that somebody was going to jump out from around the corner, because I thought there was somebody in the house. So I was like turning on every light that I could find and everything. And anyways, I slowly made my way around the corners and around the next corner, finally got up the stairs, and I looked out the door. There was only 2 doors in this house. So if the guy had come in, maybe gone out the other door. I looked and there was no tracks, right? So I thought, oh, what the heck's going on? So I slowly made my way up to Mark's room, where he was sleeping, the room he was sleeping in, and I I'm like, dude, I went in and I'm like, dude, you gotta get up. You gotta get up, dude. There's somebody in your house. There's somebody in your house. He's just, at first thought I was, joking or whatever. But like, when you think something like that's happened, you kind of sober up really quick. He realized I wasn't joking. He jumped out of bed. We ran into the kitchen. We didn't have much upstairs. There was like butter knives or something we grabbed, and we were walking around this house checking every single room, to see if there was somebody in the house. And we couldn't find anybody upstairs. So we went downstairs and we started checking every room, and we couldn't find anybody downstairs. And he came to the door and he looked out and he saw the tracks too. So he knew I wasn't making it up. So we didn't know what was going on. We couldn't sleep after that. We were so freaked out because we realized that there was somebody, at some point somebody had come in off the street and walked in this house. We don't know how they got out though, because like I said, we looked around. There was no tracks coming out of any windows or anything like that. There was it looked like somebody had walked in off the street and walked into the house and vanished. That's what it looked like. We couldn't find any tracks out, just going in. So we didn't know what to make of it. It was really strange. And we to this day we still talk about that night, how weird that was, that that happened, and we've gone over it, we've discussed it, and here's where it gets kind of weird, like even weirder, I guess. So they take that on its own, it's weird, but here's something else that happened. So a few years ago, I was at home, and it was around 6 o'clock at night, and I get an email from Mark, and he starts sending me all these pictures of cop cars, and out on like the street, I realized that it was Mark's street, and there were just all kinds of cop cars there, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, what happened? And he's like, you're not going to believe this, dude. You're not going to believe what just happened. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I'm on my balcony right now, and the street is like filled with cop cars. I'm like, what happened? He said, the guy that lives right next door to me, like, he literally, when you walk out the upstairs door, you only have to walk a few feet and you could literally touch this guy's house, the side of his house. He's like, there was just a murder in my neighbor's house. And he's like, this is crazy. So anyways, what had happened was that there was apparently Mark's next door neighbor. He didn't really have anything to do with the guy. He was kind of like he was a real sleazy kind of guy. And they really didn't get along at all. I mean, he had nothing to do with the guy. And at night when you'd go over, you'd hear like music playing like 2, 3 in the morning on like a weeknight. Like, apparently the guy had a party some night, and there were 2 guys there, and I guess one guy owed another guy money, and at some point this guy had laid down on the couch, and the guy that was owed the money had grabbed a shovel and I guess killed him with it. So that's what happened, and apparently the cops were there, and they took the guy out, and the guy had to, like, they were at his house for like a couple of weeks or something, or a week, and I guess this guy had to live at a hotel while they investigated. Anyways, what happened was that we thought, like, in the years that followed, we kind of thought about that, and like, we thought, like, how strange it was that we had that incident with somebody, like an invisible person walking in off the street, and us not being able to find the guy, and this incident with this incident with this murder next door. So we thought, is it possible, and this sounds crazy, but is it possible that this guy's spirit had visited the house that night? And because, I mean, we don't, I don't know how time works on the other side. Is it possible to be visited by a person who has not yet who is not yet dead? Because this was like quite a few years after that this happened, and it's like, it makes you wonder about how, like, time works on the other side. Is it possible that people who are not deceased yet can be haunting an area? I don't know. We don't have any other explanation for what happened that night. It was just a really strange thing that happened, but we still don't know. We still talk about it to this day. Anyways, that's the Christmas episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a great Christmas and happy holidays. Thanks to all my patrons and all the people that watch my videos. Anyways, bye.